Hi, everybody. Welcome to our newest edition of Del Talk. I'm really excited for our guest today. He's a great friend of ours here, kind great friend of mine. Gotten to know him here most recently, and Samir Dedhia, CEO of One Real Mortgage. Brother, I'm excited for this one. How you doing,
I'm
man?
I'm really excited. You got two guys who like to talk a lot
Yeah,
and who love mortgage. I mean,
yeah.
only good things can happen from this conversation, right?
Yeah,
So
always, man. Always good things happen. And as we talked about like preparing for these and it's not
yeah,
really preparation, like you said earlier, it's like a conversation of what's going on and what's happening in the world, etc.
yeah,
These are always fun because I love to learn about the people we partner with and the great mortgage professionals that make it special here in what we do every single day. But I want to start, Samir, with like, I want to take it way back, man. I want to take it back to like, how did you get into this fabulous industry, brother? Like, what led you to get in here? Everybody has a cool story. So
yeah,
I'm interested in yours, man.
yeah. My story is interesting, and I think what I will tell people all the time is
Yeah.
that pretty much for the most part, real estate agents and mortgage professionals don't graduate from college and say, "Hey, I'm going to go into that industry." It just doesn't happen. And
Nah.
the more and more people I speak with, Dell, it's interesting that it just kind of falls in their lap, and then things happen, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it's a similar situation. I'll kind of go way back, if you will.
Yeah.
The year was what 2003. I got married to my beautiful wife Sheena.
Nice.
I moved from the Philadelphia area up to the New York area.
Yeah.
There was a small town, not a small town, pretty large town called Edison, New Jersey. That's where my wife grew up, and she knew, grew up with a lot of people there, and got married. Was working in corporate America. Wasn't a huge fan. Didn't enjoy it really, to be honest. And I was looking for something. And a little bit of my history, Dell. My parents are entrepreneurs. We were in the hotel industry for a long time.
Nice.
My in-laws were, store owners. They had a pretty, popular jewelry store here in this area. So
Hmm.
it's always like that entrepreneurial mind. And
Yeah.
so what I was realizing very early on is like, like the quote unquote, and nothing wrong with it, but the corporate environment, if you will, wasn't for me.
Right.
And I wasn't enjoying it. I wasn't getting up like passionate about what I do. And so I was speaking to my father-in-law. He's like, you should meet this individual. He owns a small mortgage brokerage company here in New Jersey. So I'm like, sure. I meet with this individual. He asked me how much I was making, which wasn't a whole lot.
Right.
He told me about how much I could make potentially in mortgage. And he said you should give it a shot. And I said at that point, I told my wife, I said, I really have nothing to lose. So I did it part-time,
Nice.
still working my regular job. And Dell, was funny. People ask me this, like, how did you learn the business? And,
Yeah.
you and I probably can't come from the same time period, if you will, for the most part.
Yep.
And in those days, I can't believe we're saying that. In those days,
I
there
know.
wasn't a whole lot of support. There wasn't a whole lot of education on what it took to be a loan officer, a loan originator at the time.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything about mortgage. I had zero idea of what even a mortgage was,
Hmm.
besides just getting one for my home, right?
Yeah.
Um, I ended up reading a book called Mortgages for Dummies, and I started observing and learning. And from that, what I realized, I'm like, wait, this is kind of more consumer facing, but it's interesting because it kind of gave me a little bit of flavor of what consumers are being told.
Yeah.
So I started, using that as my pitch, if you will, my sales pitch. And I started kind of doing this part time.
Hmm.
And at that time, I had to do everything by myself. There was no processors, no LOAs. I had to go out and hustle and get deals. I had to, get the paperwork and photocopy them. I had to, put them in a manila folder and ship them off to Countrywide Home Loans or
Yeah.
any other lender that we were using at that time.
Yeah.
And I learned a hell of a lot about the mortgage industry.
Yeah.
And I started learning, like, all right, like once I started getting my footing a little bit, my branding was unknowingly at the time was becoming different than what most loan officers' branding was. And if you remember back in those days, there was this bad connotation. Like there was kind of like a little bit, and nothing wrong with this profession, but the used car salesman approach. It was
Yeah.
like, hey, let me just do this. There was zero education. None
Hmm.
of that was a thing. There was zero transparency, of course. Like
Yeah.
no one wanted to trade their, tell their secrets. And I took a different approach. I was like, you know what? Like I can speak to individuals a little bit based on like financial news that I was watching.
Yeah.
I was a accounting and finance major by degree. I kind of embedded some of that giving them the how, the why, what's happening in the markets, like a little bit of education. But again, I wasn't doing that in the mindset, Del, that, oh yeah, I'm going to try this pitch. I was just doing it naturally.
Yeah.
And things started to progress and grow. And then, over time, things worked. But that's how I got in the industry. There was no like, here you go, let's go do it. It was like, it just fell on my lap and I just took off with it.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's funny you say that. It's like a line that I use all the time. Nobody comes out of college and says, dude, I want to be a mortgage broker. I want to be a loan officer. Like maybe some people now, but I haven't met them yet, So, but a lot of people are fall into it similar how you did. That's interesting. So your family was in the hotel business for a while. Are they still in there now?
No, so my parents sold the motel back in 2013.
Yeah.
But funny story, like in the hotel industry, my parents are both in the sciences. One was my dad was a chemist. My mom was a respiratory therapist.
Wow.
So at that time, my mom had missed a lot of my first things, first step, first words, whatever it may be. And we lived in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And she told my dad, like, we got to figure something out. Like, I can't do this anymore. And she was pregnant with my brother.
Yeah.
And we ended up finding a business where we could stay and live on premises, like and it was the motel. And people, when I tell people I lived in a motel, they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, no, I physically lived in a motel. So our chores were not only cleaning the house, but it was cleaning the motel rooms.
Right.
And at the age of 10, Del, they went out and they entrusted my brother and I, who's 3 years younger than me, to watch the motel for a few hours.
Wow.
And we did it. And they taught us all these things, but it was a really interesting childhood where the entrepreneurship was like in our blood, where it was just hustle, grind, work. Even today, my kids look at me and, it's as our kids get older, it's interesting to kind of see how they're developing.
Right.
But I look at them like, certain things that they find hard. I'm like, no, it's not hard. It's just, you just got to figure it out. Right. Like, and I think that's what kind of like made me to who I am today is like growing up in that world in the motel industry. I never got into it because one of the things I used to tell myself as a kid, Del, was like, I never want to live in a motel again. That was my like thing. And looking back, it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me because I grew up pretty quickly and I learned a lot about hustling and how do you your work ethic,
Yeah, it is. And that's funny you say that because I think there is like a difference in the generation. You know that I have 4 kids, right? And and it's interesting, you said it earlier, when you said back in the days. The other day I saw an AARP magazine and it had Mario Lopez on the front. I'm like, what?
Oh, what?
Like, what the hell? Like after
no way.
50? Like, because he's over 50, right? Like I saw an article, I'm like, damn, like I remember Saved by the Bell, right? Like it was just like the time just goes like this. And part of that, I think it's like the generations have changed a lot, right? And the hard work that you put together. My father also was an entrepreneur. They built a business and all that. So I think it's different. I think that's a big thing of what being a mortgage broker is and a loan officer, man. Like we hustle, we're entrepreneurs, we find ways to win, to separate ourselves, and you've done that. But I love your background, man. I think that's why we connected so well because I have a very similar background to that as well. And it made me who I am, as a person, as a dad, as a friend, father, whatever. And I think it's a big piece. And I think like everybody has like that fork in the road to make them who they are to be successful, man. And you guys are killing it, right? Like you guys have something special in what you're doing. Where do you see like what you're doing? Maybe we can talk about that real quick. Your business model, right? You guys are doing something really special at One Real Mortgage and, taking that hard work that you've built, kind of transitioning to that a little bit. Like, where do you see how this is evolving? You guys have grown really fast, right? With the you built.
I think it's just kind of like, look, I've had a long life in the mortgage world, right? I started in 2004. I went through the 2008, 2009 timeframe where everything was like on fire and we didn't know if we were even going to be existing anymore. And then we grew and we scaled. And there's a lot of things I've learned along in my journey, right? We were founders of this company. We knew that partnering with the right people will give us an advantage to growing even further, right? So we're always about growth. And Del, I tell people all the time that if I still wanted to make a lot of money today per month, per pay period, I could be a really good loan originator, right? Like, and we could crush it. But now at this point in my career, it's all about providing impact. And how do we provide impact? Everybody provides in different ways. And when we look at what we've done, like 2 years ago, we were acquired by a real estate brokerage company called Real.
Mm-hmm.
And no one at that time knew who Real was, or not many knew at the time. It wasn't becoming a popular name in the industry yet. And, we just happened to come across, the CEO, Tamir, who I'm great friends with today, Sharon, Pratesh, like they're all great individual entrepreneurs and leaders in this space.
Yeah.
And they think from a different perspective. And we were always the ones, my partners and I, to really think differently about the mortgage industry. Like, how do we create a seamless process where no one feels it? How do we have some fun with it? How do we do different things that people weren't expecting? And we prospered from that, quite honestly. And so then from there, like once we got acquired, it's really watching what Real did for real estate professionals, real estate agents. And when I think of the real estate industry as a whole, and it's happening, like I would say in the 2008, 2009 timeframe, post that, those things that happened,
right.
You have things like Dodd-Frank and regulation and all those things happening. And I know it's not the same for real estate with NAR, but there's changes, right? So anytime there's changes, there's fear. And one of the things I've always learned is just to embrace change in a positive way and lean into it and figure out how we can adapt. So, after 2021, 2022, we took a leap of faith, right? We're looking at the long-term future of real estate, the long-term future of mortgage within real estate. And we wanted to partner with the right people. And we decided to sell our company. And that's no easy feat, right? Like selling your actual company that you've built and still staying on. This wasn't a thing where like, oh, we're going to walk away. Like we want to be part of the growth. So we stayed on and we really kind of looked at what Real did really well. And one of the things that I tell everyone, and people may not realize it, is, yes, they have a rev share model. Yes, they have a really favorable split model. But the thing that keeps the glue that keeps everyone together is this culture. But everyone talks about culture, Del. And I tell this to everyone, culture is different for everyone. It's not the same. And what I started quickly realizing was Real's culture was based on this mindset of community and collaboration. And if you think about that, it was funny. I was going to wear a hat that said "Work hard, be kind." That's just a tagline, right? And kind to it. But it's interesting that their rev share model is really it's they're not just paying people; they're actually creating some sort of mindset where it's your duty to coach, mentor, help grow people that you bring into the organization. Because the more that they do, the more that they'll also earn, but they have a stake in that. They have a hand in that.
Yeah.
So when I looked at Real Mortgage, I said, we have a lot of agents coming to Real.
Yeah.
Obviously, they have their own relationships with their lending partners, which they should, right? If they're good people and doing the right thing for their clients. How do we combine both worlds, right? And if you look at this kind of real estate space, if you will, it's very vendor relationship driven.
Totally.
It's not partner relationship driven. And my thing, what I've learned over the years is you need to create partners, not vendors. Partners last through the good times and the bad times, right? Because you're going to have times when it's not great, but we all stick together. And when I looked at Real, how they give incentives to their agent partners for through stock and making them partners in the organization, I'm like, they're onto something that the mortgage industry needed.
Yeah.
And I said, how do we combine the forces? So we launched a few different programs, right? We started getting agents more involved in the real estate process, right? We created something called Level Up. So Level Up is not a quote unquote rev share model because we can't share revenue in mortgage. However, it's really what it's true to be is a coaching and recruiting bonus that we provide. It's 5 levels, no caps. And, I know some companies are starting to come out with certain models, but I tell people that I don't want a cap because if I'm asking you to do something, you're doing it really well, why am I capping you? Right. And at the end of the day, you mentioned something earlier around entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And if I think about sales in general and the most successful real estate, mortgage, any professional out there that's in sales, all of them have really done well because they've known how to do a few things. One is building really strong relationships and having a partnership mentality. But the second is they have an entrepreneurship mentality. And Del, if you think about this with loan officers, loan originators, if you sit there and try and become just an employee of a company, you're not going to grow significantly. If you go in with a mindset of, hey, I'm going to figure out how we're going to market better, how we're going to create better processes. If you think of all the things LOs do, the really great ones that do it really well, they're entrepreneurial minded. And so when I look at this, I'm like, I don't want to create employees here either. Like, I want to create partners and I want to grow this together. And I tell people, are we perfect? Hell no. We have a long way to go. Like we grew from, I think it was 18 loan officers to now 91, I think it is
That's
today.
awesome, dude.
And again, and my whole thing is, Del, not to say that, oh, we have loan officers like, and we just have them sitting around. Like my thing is, how do we give them an environment where they feel like they're part of the solution, where they are entrepreneurial minded, where they have a say in what happens at our company and have an impact on how we grow long term. And that's what I want to create. So, you know, we started this whole idea again based on community and collaboration, really saying like, hey, what do loan originators need to grow?
Yeah.
One is we have a great agent network, right? Great referral partners. But it's not just that, because we know that you can't just go to a real estate agent and say, hey, I have great tech. I have great processes. Everyone says that.
Everybody says that. Yeah.
How do we create a model where they want to send us business, right? And that's creating this model where they can be originators with us in a partnership style environment, not like they get their license and we throw them to the wolves. Right. But also we have training. We have social media development and coaching that we brought into our company. And this is all stuff that's free. We don't charge our LOs for anything. We don't charge them for credit reports. We don't charge them for processing fees, technology fees. We want them to be able to grow from what we're building, right? And not just be on a silo island by themselves trying to figure it out. We have a lot of resources and support. Yeah. So with the level up model, Del, that what we found is that's creating impact. Right? Yeah. A lot of people like to coach. They like to mentor. Now they can do it and make money off of it as well. And the last thing that we just rolled out, we haven't marketed yet, but we will probably in the next week or so. Yeah. Is I thought again, I said, look, the Real Originate program, which is a program that, you know, real estate agents can be a part of, right? By getting licensed. Yeah. The Level Up program, which is our coaching and recruiting 5-level onboarding, you know, bonus that you can get. What else can we do? Like, what else can we do to create a model of community and collaboration? And I thought of it. I'm like, wait a second here. I called Samir, our CEO and founder, and I said, hey, man, I have an idea. And I think we can start to really build something much larger. I said, why don't we offer stock based on certain metrics? And he's like, tell me more. What are you thinking? I said, if a loan originator closes 20 million in production a year, which is a good amount, but it's not excessive, right? It's not like 100 million. Right. What if we gave them $15,000 every year in real stock? And he's like, okay. And I said, for the second component, though, we want people to close deals quickly as soon as they get in here. This isn't a shop where you just LOs come and they sit and they hang out. Like we need production, right? Yeah. So what if we said, hey, if someone sponsors a loan officer under a Level Up program, and let's say Del, for example, I like to use people as examples. Yeah. Del, you're an originator at One Real Mortgage. You attracted Samir to One Real Mortgage. Samir's now with One Real Mortgage. Del, if I close my first loan in the first 90 days, okay, 90, you as my sponsor will get $500 in real stock for every individual you do that. And again, the money is great, but here's what I realized: it's the partnership mentality. That's right. It's how do we grow together? And one thing that's amazing, I did some analysis of this. I said, if we would have done that 2 years ago and someone hit it each year, the $30,000 that we gave them as an award would be worth $100,000 today. Wow. Think about that.
That's a lot of money. That's impactful, man.
Impact, right? Yeah, so how do I provide impact to people to make their lives better? How do I create an environment where they can retire here and they can, you know, have a retirement plan? Because as you know, just like in the real estate space, real estate professionals, loan officers, a lot of people who are commission only, they don't have that. Unless they close a deal, they're not making any money.
That's right.
Period. So how do we create something bigger than ourselves and grow it at full scale?
Damn, man, that's a great model, man. And I know we've talked about that several times. Your growth from where you started to the over 90, I think you said loan officers are at over 81. That's just the proof. The numbers don't lie, man. It's working, right? And
yeah, it's working. And you know where we found our sweet spot, Del, is like loan originators who are closing 2 to 3 deals a month. Yeah, maybe even like 2 deals a month, 1 to 2, whatever. We've been able to plug them in, give them the support, give them the resources, give them the opportunity to grow. And we found like they're doubling their production almost a year. Yeah. And their earning potential goes through the roof. There was an individual who I was shocked when I saw these numbers. And numbers don't lie, right? Like we know,
They
like
don't
that's the
mind the
proof in the
data.
pudding.
Yeah,
And you can
yeah.
have as many loan officers as you want, loan originators as you want, but if they're
Right.
not making significant money,
Doesn't matter.
we know it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
So I'm looking through some stuff, like, reviewing data, and I found a few individuals, but this one really stood out to me. An individual joined our company probably about a year and a half ago or so. Was closing
Yeah.
a couple deals a month, and was adapting to everything we were throwing
Yeah.
at them, right? Like,
Yeah.
hey, and we know, again, like you got to roll with the punches here at One Real Mortgage.
Totally.
It's not like turnkey
Yeah.
operation, but he
Right.
understands the bigger picture.
Right.
Closing 2 to 3 deals a month at his previous place, increasing, building more relationships. And I tell this to a lot of loan originators, Del, your job is not to sit behind a computer and process a loan. Like there's people for that. There's technology for that. Your role is to find a way where you can build more and more relationships. That's how you scale your business. And you and I know that, right? Like we've been through this. It's all about scale. At some point in time, you have to scale your business. But how do you do it? You need help with that, right? You need support with that. This individual, Del, it was amazing to me to see, right? Growing, absorbing, being a student of the game. And I love that. I love coaching kids to that level. 2 to 3 deals a month, starting to scale 3, 4, 5 deals a month. Started to attract other loan officers, participate and level up. The month of December, this individual earned $50,000.
Wow.
In 1 month.
Wow.
And again, not that the person was easy money, person worked, entrepreneurial minded, right? But we have so many cases that I'm starting to see now with what we're doing. That really gets me excited, right? The money part, the units part, whatever, that's all great, fine. But I always believe, like, we always look at, like, the numbers are all a result of what your actions are. And so when I looked at this, I was like, holy bleep, bleep, bleep. And I'm like, that is amazing, right? So that, when I think about it, that's why I get up every day. Right. That's what I enjoy doing. How do we innovate something that already exists and have so much impact that no one can really say that, oh, this is a fluke or it's marketing or whatever. Like, there's pure results to show that it is working.
Yeah, there's results, right? And at the end of the day, we are in a business that, and you said so much there that I want to kind of touch on, but like we're in the results, right? Like, is it working? Data, like what you guys are investing in, it obviously is. What, man, like your model, I think is a great lesson for people to listen and how to scale. You said that a couple times, scaling, but you said something, man, that, we're talking about kind, and that's our brand. And people really say culture, but it's how you live it. That's for us the same thing too. But Samir, what I have found is and you tell me, like you said this twice when we're talking, you're like aligning yourself with the right people to help you grow, right? And so that's a big piece. As you continue to scale, you want to find the right partners, the right people, because it might not always be the fit, it just might not be. So what's your process, man? How do you like identify, I want to process with them, and then how do you, because I've talked to loan officers and broker owners about this, man. They would talk to me, Del, great producer, just wasn't a fit,
Yeah.
So as a business owner and entrepreneur, that's a big part of what we do, is attract people, but you want to attract the right people. So what are some things that you look for when you're attracting people to your company?
So I think it's important first to establish who you are, to establish what your DNA is. And again, like I say, community and collaboration here at One Real Mortgage, those are 2 big major things that we look for in people. Are they community minded? Can they collaborate with others, right? And it sounds like a loose term, but there's some people that just don't enjoy that. Like some people honestly were like, hey, I just want to go and not talk to anybody, close some loans and walk away. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But you have to first establish who you are. And I think, sometimes companies and business owners, entrepreneurs, they almost try and create their own culture that may not be truly who they are for the sake of saying that they have this culture. Typically, like for us, you have to establish who you are first.
Who you are,
From that point, you kind of already know in talking to them. Like, Del, you speak to a lot of people, and so do I.
Yeah.
We get on a call with someone, you kind of immediately know from a gut perspective if they're the right fit, if you want to have a drink with this person, if you want to have a conversation with this person, like, do you feel good around this person? And honestly, that's really the biggest piece. Like, there's times when you'll get a great resume or great, LinkedIn profile, and you're like, oh, wow, this person would do well here. And you meet with them, you're like, oh, man, like, I don't know, not going to fit here very well, right? And so a lot of it's gut, but a big part is just knowing who you are. And so what I do is I do look for those individuals and ask them questions around that. Like, how would you? And one of the things I think sometimes as all of us, and I'm trying to get better at this as well,
Yeah.
is like, we won't just ask the question and shut up. We'll ask the question, give our answer, and then ask them what their answer is. And they'll repeat the answer that we just gave.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
Yeah.
So sometimes what I try and do is I ask simple questions and turn my mic off. It's like, okay, so tell me, like, what would you do in this situation? How would you react?
Yeah.
And you'll start to get that. And so those are the things. But again, I'm telling you, the gut is the biggest thing.
It is.
You just know as a human being, that's one sense that all of us have. And sometimes the problem is we don't listen to it because we're trying to justify it in our minds with some sort of logic that we want to make ourselves feel better about.
Yeah.
But we have to listen to our gut, and our gut will tell us 9 times out of 10 the right decision to make. And you know, it's okay to make. I think the other thing too, Dale, to that is when people are trying to, you know, find the right people that they want to work with, they have to understand that they're going to make mistakes. Like we're going to make mistakes, possibly maybe in bringing somebody on, and that person may make mistakes as well. And I always tell this to people, like the mistakes part is something that we all should be learning from, and we shouldn't be fearful of making mistakes.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I tell people, like those, if you take those things out, like no fear, go with it, go with your gut, make sure they align with who you are and ask questions around that. And the production and everything else, like those things will follow. Like if they're in the right position, like you can get someone to do well if they're the right culture fit for what you're trying to build.
Yeah, culture's big on. I mean, you know, we talked about that in our first conversation and what we're doing here in Kind. And then Glenn has always been, and Mindy too, very involved in that piece, right? Like making sure that we're all servant leadership, making sure that we're surrounded by people that want to contribute, you know, and be part of the buy-in. Knowing who you are, that's a big piece, man. That's a very big piece because then you have certain things that you won't bend on, right? Like I know what's important to us, etc. You know, I know
and ultimately, Del, it's your DNA, right?
Yeah.
If you think about it, it's who you are, and you shouldn't fake it ever. You should do these things. And look, Glenn, and there's so many leaders in our industry that have, you know, like that's what I realize now too, as a leader, as a CEO of this company, like my main job is to make sure I'm driving the culture and the vision, right? The tactical stuff, if you bring in the right people who can handle those things on your behalf and do it probably better than you, that's a win. But sometimes we're fearful of letting go, and that attachment, and that, you know, look, let's face it, a lot of us are type A personality. We want full control, which is what got us to where we are. But we have to start realizing, like, just like when I was in LO doing 8 to 10 loans a month and exhausted because I was doing all the paperwork myself, and then bringing somebody on to help me with that, I was able to shoot up and do 20, 30, 40 loans a month. That's scale. But you have to realize it first that you need to, if your goal is to scale, and not everyone's goal is to scale, but if your goal is to scale, then you have to put people in the right positions around you to do the things that maybe you were doing that you're good at it, you're great at it, but someone else can do it or do it better, where you can focus on some other opportunities for you.
That's right. That's a big lesson for a lot of people, right? I really remember when we were talking to a broker of ours, like Glenn and I were talking about this like 5 years ago with him. And he's like, I just don't want to let go of that part of the business. And he's like, man, if you don't, you're going to stay where you're at. Like the company's not going to grow. And I want to talk about, we have a couple more minutes here. I'm sorry to keep you longer, man, but like,
no, I have till 4 o'clock. So
okay, cool. I got a couple more questions for you. So you talked about mentorship, right? Like, and that's part of your guys' philosophy and what you offer a lot in your company, which, by the way, I love. I think the industry needs more of it. I've been blessed, man. I'm here talking to you because people like Yvonne, our president, Glenn, someone who's dear to me, and Melissa Armstrong, who unfortunately passed away, all then took, notice, right? And they're like, hey, this guy wants to learn. We're going to mentor him. We're going to continue to grow, and teach him how to grow, et cetera, be a mentor, right? And I think that our industry needs more of it, you know. And I think that there's a lot to say for people that take time, number one, to mentor, but number two, to even ask to be mentored, because that you're putting yourself out there. Somebody might be like, no, I don't want to do that. You know, what's your advice for people that, because you're super successful, and so if I'm listening to this and I'm a person trying to get into the industry, or if I'm somebody that wants to take to the next level, person that's seasoned or even inexperienced, what's the best way to ask someone for help to be mentored? What's the best way to do that?
So I think, in my opinion,
Yeah.
the best way is to first identify people that you're looking to maybe kind of be at some point, not be, but you know what I'm saying? Like, to almost like the goals that maybe they've achieved or things that they've done, like you
Yeah.
admire them. You're like, wow, like that person was really impactful. And what you'll find is when you reach out to those people, they're very happy and open to unload everything
Yeah.
and just speak on their mind and help, coach you. And maybe it's not a formalized agreement or arrangement, right?
Right. Right.
But you find those people. And look, early on, I'll you and I spoke about it. Like
Mhm.
Rocket Mortgage and us, like early on, we had a great relationship, right? We
Yeah.
still do. And
Yeah.
I'll never forget, like one of the first people where I had a conversation with was, there's so many people I spoke to, but
Mhm.
there's an individual, Mike Vowell, for example, who was
Yeah.
like part of the whole transition to QLMS. Then
Yeah.
over time, I met Bill Emerson, pioneer of our industry, right, as well,
Yeah.
just like Glenn. Like
Yeah.
they've just, done it all.
Yeah.
Worked when I'm talking about 2001. They were there before there was probably even like half the stuff that
Yeah.
I had, right, as luxuries. So
Totally.
you start to really pick their brain. Like I'll still text with Mike Val, for example, Bill Emerson, for example, from an industry perspective, right? And I'll talk to them, be like, hey, like I have a situation here. What would you do? Or how
Yeah.
could I address this better?
Right.
It still happens. And I think you have to understand that we are all students, every single one of us, even a
Yeah.
Bill Emerson or a Mike Val or Glenn Stearns or a Delfino Aguilar.
Yeah.
We're all
Yeah.
students of
Yeah.
something. So if you have the mindset that you're a student and you're always looking to learn and get better,
That's right.
then you'll find the people that you identify best with and you start talking to them and they're actually going to feel like pretty happy that you're speaking to them about something,
That's
right?
right.
And I think most people in our positions in leadership, that's what we're really, really good at. We're
Yeah.
really good at giving advice because we've been through a lot of crap. We
Yeah.
know like what to do, what not to do. We've had a lot of experience through what we've done. And
Yeah.
sometimes, like for example, Dell, like there's sometimes when I was like maybe about to make a dumb move because of money. And
Yeah.
I had to be reminded that it's not about the money. It's about the passion and what you enjoy because the money will
Right.
follow. But
That's
you
right.
need people like that to reel you back. So that's the one thing I would say is like identify who you feel would be a good mentor for you based
Yeah.
on whatever it is, right? It could be mortgage industry related, it could be something else, it could be
Right.
mindset, it could be
Yeah.
whatever you want to be in your goals. And then from there, start just having conversations with them. I mean, I'm fortunate now to have so many mentors around me.
Yep.
Even here at Real, Sharon, Tamir. I mean, a
Mhm.
lot of my friends, my parents obviously were always mentors from a
Yeah.
young age.
Yeah.
But like, if you think about it, I've had the opportunity and the privilege to be mentors. And as I grow now, I'm starting to be mentors for my children because I'm like, hey, there's certain things that you need to understand and how to act and what are best decisions or how do you make those best decisions, and different philosophies around what I believe to be, good to help people. So I
Yeah.
think that's the approach I would take. I love mentorships. I could talk about it forever,
Yeah.
but
Me too, man.
it's in at the first recently. I recently took on a coach. I've never had a coach in my life.
Yeah.
And I brought in an executive coach, Dale, and I'm like, wow, this is actually pretty amazing. Like I've
Yeah.
never had a coach before, and to be able to just talk through things on a regular basis, not that people are around, but everyone's busy, but to have that dedicated time and person that I can go to no matter what and just
Mhm.
speak to about anything I want, it's
Yeah.
pretty awesome.
It is. It's awesome, man. Listen, I think we have a responsibility, like you and I, right, to help as many people, and you guys are doing that. You guys are doing something special, man. I'm happy for you as we got to know each other. Like genuinely, you guys are good people. You're a great guy. I hope you guys had fun at your ski trip when you went with your kids and
Oh, we
wife.
already did. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I
A
know
lot of
you told me
snow,
about
a
that.
lot of snow in
That's
Vermont, man.
awesome. That's
Crazy.
awesome.
Crazy.
So you're a busy guy, and I got one more question. You're a really busy guy, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm a big morning guy. Like every morning, no matter what, like I'll get up and I'll go for a walk, even if it's dark, cold, whatever. Get 35, 40 minutes by myself, and I'm in the walk. Like I have
Yeah.
a little morning routine I do, man. What's your morning routine? Do you have one? You want to share it?
Yeah, no, I
Anything
yeah, I do.
special?
I
What do
do.
you do?
So
Yeah,
and again, it's not always consistent, right? Because there's
correct.
things that
Of
happen
course.
in life, but I
Yeah.
try my best to create this regimen for myself.
Yeah.
And so I'm not a crazy. I know you're up at what 4,
4
3. I
a.m.
don't know. Yeah,
Yeah,
4.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not a 4 a.m. type of person. Just putting it out
Yeah,
there right now. It's not me.
yeah.
And for me, I like and everyone's body's different, Dell. So like
Correct.
some people
Yeah.
need a little bit more rest than others, right?
Of course. Of
You're
course.
probably like a John Gruden who needs 3 hours and you're fine.
Yeah.
But I usually get up around 6:45.
Yeah.
I start getting my kids stuff ready. Like I enjoy that.
Awesome.
I'll go down, I'll make their lunch
Beautiful.
for school. I'll
Yeah.
sit with them. I'll make my cup of tea. I only have a cup of Indian tea in the morning. That's
Nice.
what I drink.
Nice.
And I'll sit with them. I'll chat with them for a little bit while we're just kind of hanging out.
Yeah.
Throw a little CNBC on once they leave, drink my tea, and then I go work out. So typically what I do is I'll split up and do cardio 3 days a week, and I'll lift 3 days a week, and I'll split that up because I tried doing everything at one time.
Yeah.
And I was just on my phone, responding to Slack messages. Right. It was the worst thing. So now 40 minutes is all I need every single day, but it's typically my morning routine. Come home, get ready, shower. I actually come physically to the office almost every day.
Awesome.
We're virtual. No one is here in my office, usually except for me and maybe a few other folks sometimes.
Yeah.
But I come here and I just do that. And then I try and leave. And look, I'll say the biggest challenge, because we all have challenges in your routines.
Yes.
Is that sometimes we get distracted. And so I'm trying to become better where I'm only responding to emails and messages and Slacks at certain periods of the time, because all of us are very quick to react and respond immediately. That's the world we live in.
Yeah.
So I'm trying my best to put stuff away, and it's not perfect. I'm trying.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
But those are the other routines that I'll say is like, that's helped the brain a lot more because the mind is so important, where it needs to be fresh and clear every single day. Because if it's cluttered with stuff, we're not going to think straight. And like you mentioned earlier, like some of the things that we want to do and build and create, we're not here to do tactical work anymore. We're here to actually build something and innovate something. So we need our brains to be clear. So anything, the morning walk, I love it. It's just too cold here in Jersey to do the morning walk. So I'm not doing that. So I just do my Peloton bike ride and I'm good. You know.
There you go, brother. I love it. I appreciate that. You know, I'll have one regret and I'll share with you. And I think I've said this to publicly before, man, but as I was a younger guy, right, I was an AE, I was an RVP, divisional, et cetera, and all this, like, I really never spent, one regret that I have of many, I guess, is I never really did that the breakfast time with my kids, you know? So God bless you, man, because everybody says that's the most special time. I was always like printing rate sheets, looking at, you know, in the morning, all that, right? And I think that's so much important. My kids are older, right? I'm not becoming, I got teenage daughters, 13, 15, and 18. So I'm not as cool as I think, dude. I buy nice Nikes. They're like, Dad, those are not nice.
No, we're cool. What are you talking?
We're cool, man. We're cool.
We listen to good music. My kids still listen to my 90s and 2000s hip hop, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, that's awesome." I'm like, but I'll say one thing to that, right? And I think life is an evolution, and we're always trying to figure stuff out. And it's like, imagine just a road. You're just going along and trying to figure things out as you go.
Right.
And so for a long time, similar to you, man, it was the same thing. Like, my kids were born, my twins were born in 2010. 6 months later, my wife finds out she's pregnant. And 15 months after the twins were born, my third son was born. So I have 3 boys. And I missed a lot of stuff in the sense that it wasn't intentional, but like I was running and going. And I recently, my wife and I were just chatting, and I said, babe, this is crazy. My twins will be off to college, maybe, or hopefully, but we think they will be in about 3.5 years. My younger one will be gone in 4. And then what? Like, these are the days, like, to your point, like, you can't bring these memories back. No. And like, you can try and, do nice dinners and do all these things, but honestly, and it, like, our kids just want quality time with us. That's it.
Right.
I will say this with the utmost humility. None of us are perfect. Right? Every time we look at social media, we're like, oh, look at that beautiful, perfect. No one is freaking perfect, right? But just remember, do the best you can with what you have. Spend as much quality time as you can. I still think I should be doing a lot more. I don't do enough.
Me too. Yeah.
And then hopefully at that point in time, the work hard, be kind method, like kind lending. Like we talk about kindness. I tell my kids, I want my kids to just be kind people. That's it. I have no other crazy expectations. Be nice, kind people to everyone in your life. Don't be one of those kids that bullies other ones around, trying to be mean, all those things. Just be a good human being. That's all I ask for. But again, Dale, that comes from us, right?
It does come from us.
They see what we do, like how we saw our parents grind. We are a product of them. They're a product of us. So if we do those things, they might not be with us all the time, but they see us on social media. They see what content we put out there. They see who we are and how we act with other human beings at a party. They see all that shit. So we just got to that's one way of kind of creating what we want for their generation,
That's right. Yeah, man. Listen, you hit it right on the head. Samir, this has been one of my favorite episodes, man. Like
No, I
we covered,
appreciate it. This has been awesome for me as well, man. It's been
yeah,
awesome.
man. We covered a lot. We covered a lot of a lot of pieces, and I think it's really important to talk about the family piece because that makes us who we are as well. But
Yep.
I really appreciate your time, man. I hope it gets cooler and where you're at, brother. How can people follow you, Samir? Get more information from you.
Yeah.
One Real Mortgage.
Yep.
How can we get people to ask information about?
So I'm pretty accessible.
Yeah.
Look, my email address is samir.dedhia at
Mm-hmm.
onerealmortgage.com, all spelled out.
Mm-hmm.
My cell phone number, which I give to everyone, is
Yeah.
908-227-6042.
Awesome.
Social media, you can hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm there.
Yeah.
Facebook, I'm there. Instagram, it's Mr. Mr. Samir Dedhia, my full name.
Okay.
And I'm pretty active. I was never active before. Sharon, my good buddy and mentor now, he kicked me in the butt and was like, you need to be out there more on social because you have a lot of great things to say. Just go and say it. And so now I'm getting more active in social, you know.
I love it, man. I think we do. I think everybody has to be more active. So I hope, Samir, first of all, thank you. Thank you for your time
man. I
today,
appreciate
brother.
it.
I'm
It's
sure
been
we'll
awesome.
talk. I know we're going to see each other here soon in person.
Yep.
If you want to, I hope everybody listening to this episode enjoyed it. I know it was one of my favorite ones. If you want to learn more about Samir, he dropped his information. We really appreciate you watching this episode of Del Talk, powered by Kind Lending. You can also visit us at kindlending.com or visit us on Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Samir, my brother, thank you again, man.
Thank you, my brother. I appreciate it.